Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and more. Follow Elliot in the Morning everywhere social at EITM Online.
Dusty!
All right.
Hey, how are you, sir?
I'm great. We're having a good time. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, thank you. First things first, before we get any further down the road, your set on the stand-ups is fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Very, very funny. And listen, I don't know you well enough to know whether you care or you pay attention, but the reviews for the whole special are really, really good. The reviews for your set in particular are like above that, like as one of the highlights of the show.
Well, that's fantastic. I appreciate you telling me that. I don't know even where you find reviews, so I appreciate that.
Now, were you pleased with how it went? Like when you were doing it, did you get a sense that it was going well? Like I have to assume shooting that is weird anyway.
It is weird, but I did feel like it was going well. I mean, for me, I work out material in the middle of the country, the Southeast, the Midwest. I go to some cities, but whenever I go to New York City, it's always intimidating for me. I never know what people are going to think about my jokes. I don't even know if the audience has been to a trailer park before. So I was very happy. I could tell that they were into the jokes, and I was like, and that helps me have confidence to get to the next joke. So, I mean, you're one bomb away from losing your confidence as a comic. So when each joke gets a laugh, you're like, all right, we're doing it. We're making it happen.
Now, Dusty, did you know everybody? Like, I don't know what group of comedians you run around with, but in terms of the other people that are part of the stand-ups, were you friendly with any of them?
I only knew Mark Norman and Janelle James, and I only know them a little bit. So meeting everyone was really getting to know everyone, and they were all so nice. I had such a good time meeting everyone and hanging.
And then is it too early to tell yet? Like, has it been a shot in the arm since the stand-ups has come out? Like, ever since it started airing on Netflix, have you been able to tell there's a boost that comes from that?
Yeah, I mean, my social media, I didn't know what to expect, right? Because when I did The Tonight Show for the first time in 2018, the night it aired, there was a nice boom. I got an increase of followers, and I was like, okay, that was a lot of fun. But with Netflix, I didn't really get a boom the night it was released, but every day now is more of an increase. It's just like the gift that keeps giving. I keep getting messages from strangers from all over the world, honestly, people telling me how much they enjoyed it. And people of all races and seemingly religions messaging me saying how much they like my jokes. And it just, I don't know, I love it. It feels really good.
Hey, Dusty, let me ask you this. You mentioned doing the Tonight Show like back in 2018. You did Fallon not too long ago. Has anybody from the Duluth, from the Aquarium in Duluth, reached out since you were on there?
Actually, the next day, the Duluth Aquarium put out their own video, and they were very fun about it.
Were they really?
Yeah, they were very fun. They showed the ceramic turtle that they have. They showed their bird cage. Yeah, they were very nice.
That's cool, because I expected the answer to be, oh, God, no, they have not reached out at all.
Cease and desist.
Legally, maybe, but not on their own terms.
Actually, some friends that I made in Duluth from doing shows there messaged me and told me that their friends own that aquarium and that they loved it.
Oh, that's great. That's good to hear.
Yeah. Because, I don't know. I guess I was making fun of the aquarium, but I might have caught them on a bad day, but I wasn't making it up.
I like how you preface it with, I guess I was making fun of them. No, you don't have to guess. You 100% were. Absolutely.
I know. I hate making fun of people, but it was a funny aquarium.
You don't mind making fun of yourself?
I don't mind making fun of myself, but I even try to not do that too hard. But you know what? I just like to believe that everybody's trying out here. We're all just trying to make it. And I I hate to make fun of people, but sometimes I'm like, I need some material. I need some jokes. And to me, it sounds funny to say an aquarium in Duluth, Minnesota. If I'm just vague about it, that's not as fun.
Right. No, that's true. That's fair. Hey, so let me ask you this. I mean, obviously you had the you had the stand-ups on Netflix. Netflix, the going back out on the road. Were you off the road during the holidays?
A little bit, but I pretty much am on the road all the time. I mean, things are happening these days. It's like I've canceled more things than I ever have before, just because various things are happening these days. But I pretty much stay on the road all the time.
And if you don't mind my asking, I saw some pictures online, and there were a couple of pictures of your wife up online. Where did you meet her?
Well, my wife is Canadian, and I actually met her in New York City. We were both up there visiting. Well, she was down there. I was up there. We were visiting, doing open mics, and that's where we met.
No kidding. Where in Canada is? I for whatever reason I want to say Montreal, but I'm probably wrong.
She is from Peterborough, Ontario, but lived in Toronto for 10 years.
I gotcha. All right. So, but the point is, you did not meet her at community college.
I did not. I mean, that would have been a quick meeting. I did more open mics in New York City than I spent time in college. That's for sure.
I do like that you said at some point that you went to community college to meet a woman, but you just went to each class just once.
Yeah, well, I had regressed, I think, in the summer that I took off. I don't know. I might have experimented with some substances, but I lost some brain power. And so I found myself in some remedial classes, and there were no women in there. I was in the class with the dumbest people in my town, and none of those were women.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Nashville is home. That's where you live. But before that, you're a trailer park kid from Alabama.
Yeah, I grew up in Alabama in a trailer park. I lived there until I was 21, and I actually did 10 years in Charleston, South Carolina, in between Nashville and Alabama. But and I like to say that's where I picked up a little class. But my city is not Opelika is not so bad. I mean, I made fun of it a lot growing up, but it's not so bad. I lived in a trailer, and we love NASCAR and professional wrestling, and before those were cool. And, I like growing up in a trailer park. I just never knew why they called it a park. That didn't make sense to me.
Hey, but were you interested in comedy? I'm just trying to put it together that, you're living in this trailer park in Alabama. At what point did comedy even enter your, did you love comedy from the time you were a kid, or did it come along later?
I loved it. I loved laughing at comedy, and I loved making jokes with my friends, but I never made the connection that I could be a comedian. It wasn't until I moved to Charleston and just found myself in a place where I didn't have any friends once moving to this new city, and I took an improv class, and I didn't even know what improv was. I was just trying to have some new experiences. And from that, I met some people that were interested in stand-up, and there wasn't even really a stand-up scene in Charleston. So we just kind of did some comedy at a bar, and then we started our own little open mic, and it just kind of budded from there.
I feel like that takes a ton of balls. Not the picking up and moving to Charleston, like that I get, but you're kind of a stranger in a new town. I mean, Charleston must seem like a pretty big city compared to where you were coming out of. And just to stroll into, of all places to go meet people, to enroll in an improv class seems pretty ballsy.
Yeah, I mean, Charleston might as well have been New York City to me. Any building over 3 stories was a skyscraper to me. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just was, I moved there with a buddy. We're friends again, but our friendship and living together ended very quickly. And so I moved out into an apartment with a guy that I didn't even know. And I was just like, man, I am struggling to make friends out here. So I just, I had never really had to make friends. I just grew up with all my friends. So I took a improv class, and it was pretty nerve-wracking. But I was like, I don't know, I'm funny. I make my friends laugh.
Hey, do you ever try to roll out, like, especially as things, like you said, things are happening, things keep going, that Netflix special, TV appearances, like things are on a really, really good roll for Dusty Slay. Do you ever stop, or have you gotten to the point yet where you stop and go, I wonder how this would all be different if I would have actually joined the Army?
Oh, man, I spend so much time thinking about that, actually. Because I was there. I had signed the papers. I mean, it was happening. I was Army bound. I was running the track. I was doing push-ups. I was learning the Greek alphabet. And then it just was all halted. I had a whole plan. You know, I was going to be a cook, and then I was going to be airborne. They got me a signing bonus. I had a whole plan that I was going to be a cook and then learn that trade and then open my own restaurant.
Right.
So, I mean, I was on a different path, and that's why to this day I don't believe in setting goals. Because I'm like, I have no idea what's in store for me. I'm just rolling with it.
And that all ended. Well, let me back up before why it ended. Like you said, you were signed up, you were ready to go, and you got in some trouble. We'll get to that in a second. But was the impetus really for you to join the Army? Was the impetus really the guy that kept coming in? You were working at a Western Sizzlin' at the time, which I have not been to in forever. But you were working at a Western Sizzlin', and there was a guy that came in for like a week, and you would just talk to him every day, and he was an Army dude.
Yeah, he was just an older guy that was a construction worker just working on a job in town. And he kept coming in every day, and he was talking about how much money he was making. And I was like, well, why don't you go to like Outback or something? And he's like, that's just an expensive piece of meat. I remember him saying that. And then he said, he just started talking about the Army one day, and he was talking about all the places he went. And then I'm like, man, I'd love to get out of here. I mean, I'm working at Western Sizzlin'. I'm doing nothing. I mean, I loved my friends, but most of them were deadbeat friends. And I'm like, what am I doing? And so I left work one day and went right down to the recruiter's office and just started talking to those guys.
And then if it weren't for the stupid liquor and weed, you would have made it all the way in.
Yeah, and, you know, the thing about it for me is that the night I went out to party, I got back from my physical. My recruiter told me, he goes, listen, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but he said, I know you like to smoke weed, and they're going to drug test you again in 30 days. So if you want to do it tonight. And so I went out, and I was hanging out, and I do think I took a puff. But I wasn't into it. I had already given up weed. And I was just doing it at that point because he told me to do it tonight. So I left a party. I had 2 beers, unopened beers, and I left with a friend. We were going to meet these girls that I had just met over the phone. I don't imagine we were texting back then, so I don't know how it all went down.
Right.
But we left with those beers, and all we had to do was not open them. But we thought, hey, we'll be cool, right? We'll pull up to the trailer park. I can't even make this stuff up. We'll pull up to the trailer park, and we'll get out of the car, and we'll be drinking. Now, we didn't say that out loud, but that was both of our thought.
Right.
And I get pulled over. I pull up behind a cop car on the interstate. And it was that moment where you're like, he's going too slow for me not to pass, but my exit is coming up. So what do? So I just said, you know what, I'm going to pass him. And I passed him. I got off the interstate. My instinct was to pull into the gas station, turn off the ignition, get out of the car.
Right.
But I said, nah, it's going to be fine. And then I got pulled over, and he arrested me. And I didn't know what to do. I had an open beer in the center console. It's like I either let him see it, either the cop has eyes and he can see that the beer is in the center console, or I tuck it underneath the seat, hoping maybe he doesn't have a sense of smell, you know?
Right. So you tucked it under the seat.
Yes. And turns out he did have a sense of smell.
Hey, Dusty, I know I'm going to run out of time, but I want to ask you something. You don't hide the fact, or at least in whether it's on stage or just talking about it, you don't hide the fact that, like, back in the day, like, you used to drink a lot. You have a hysterical line about drinking, but you'll talk about blacking out and the whole thing. Do people ever get pissed at you, or are they just like, yep, I get it?
Well, once in a while, I've had someone message me about the drinking and driving jokes as if I'm glorifying it. I mean, my whole idea here is that I paint a picture of myself and how much of a wreck I was, that you actually won't look at what I'm saying as glorification. I mean, for 10 years in Charleston is a party city, and for 10 years I drank, I partied, I drove drunk all the time, and it didn't start off that way. It started off, I'd have one or two beers, and I'd be real scared to drive home. And then, once you just get away with it over and over again, eventually I'm working at a restaurant.
Right.
We get off at midnight. We have an hour and a half to pound as many beers as we can before we get in our cars and drive home. It was a culture that we were living in, and I don't think it was a good thing, and I wish I wasn't doing it. But thankfully, I survived. I never hurt myself or anyone. I damaged a lot of cars, but no one ever got hurt.
I do like how you say, though, don't waste a DUI on just being buzzed.
Well, I hate that slogan that you'll see on billboards. They'll go, buzz driving is drunk driving. It seems like a challenge more than a warning.
All right, dude. Well, listen, the Stand-Ups is now streaming on Netflix. Dusty Slay on the road. He will be at the Funny Bone in Richmond, March 18th through 19th. Kansas City Improv, August 19th and 20th. Dusty, your set on the Stand-Ups is fantastic, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me. This was a very fun interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Dusty. I loved it also. Thank you, sir.
All right.